Good evening. Today is April 17th, 2017, and welcome back to Veterans Voices. I'm Nathan Johnson, the Contra Costa County Veterans Service Officer. Tonight's show is aptly titled, Show Me the Money. And as you probably guessed, yes, we'll be talking about financial planning. We'll be talking about money, your money, and we want to get your questions ready for our guests who will be joining us shortly. But first, what a special treat this is. I want to introduce my special co-host, fellow Marine Corps veteran, Iraq War veteran as well, and our field correspondent. He did our Man on the Street episode, or segment last episode, Mr. Ryan Berg.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Ryan.
No, yeah, it's great to be here. It's actually, it really is an honor to be here.
It's good to have you.
So
and thanks for taking this on. Kevin will be back with us. Kevin wanted to say hello, and he misses everyone, and we'll see him again next month. So, Ryan, this is a lot to say, but we want to first give folks an idea of who you are. Because if you're going to do the Man on the Street, and you're just that guy that people get to, I don't know, enjoy an episode about a special topic, laugh a little bit, they won't quite understand who Ryan Berg is. So you've been a part of this show for several months now, actually in a producing role, on the production team, I should say. You're a veteran, as I mentioned. You live locally. But how did you come to be involved here in Veterans Voices?
Well, you and I obviously connected about the show, and you know, it seemed to be a way for me to contribute, you know, to the veteran community, and you know, help you guys plan the show, and really, you know, get my voice out there too, you know, in terms of just by planning the show, you know, I think that I could, you know, help be, you know, help with the creative aspect of the show. So. You know, I really, you know, appreciate the opportunity, and yeah, I enjoy it too.
So you're a volunteer. You actually donate your time every third Monday to be a part of the show. You actually come to some of the production meetings, contribute to some of the content. What does it take to be involved here in Veterans Voices? Do you just have to simply have an interest in the show, or did you have some TV production background before you even came here?
No TV production background at all. You know, what I really like to do is just ask questions, you know, and really try to learn as a group, you know. So I think what it takes to be, you know, an effective member of the team here with Veterans Voices is really just have an open mind, you know, especially as we look to, you know, represent Veterans Voice. I think, you know, having multiple perspectives to be able to ask questions and, you know, provide ideas really helps make the show much more rich. So, yeah.
So where does that passion come from? You're a veteran. You served in the Marine Corps, Simplify, and you served in Iraq. But now you're leading an organization here locally, returning veterans of Diablo Valley.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how you started that organization. What does that organization do? And what does it mean to you?
Thank you for that question. Well, I went to UC Berkeley, and I started the organization kind of at that point, or so you know, the seed was planted, kind of. And so it took me several years, and it's still a process I go through today about really clarifying what it is we do. And essentially what I could tell you is that it really grew out of my desire to have more friends in my life. And, you know, after realizing that, you know, having more friends that are veterans in my life, I realized that, you know, that's actually helping me in my healing journey, you know, and I realized that I was helping others in their journey too, just by, you know, really being friends with them and you know, connecting with their lives. And one of the things I've come to see is true is that the challenges that we experienced in the military are when we come home, the challenges are could be far more complicated than those we experienced in the service. And what I mean by that is when you come home, you're often looking for someone to truly empathize with you and relate. And empathy is, you know, one of the, you know, values that can most contribute to healing. And so really what I would say is that we're a network of friends looking to really help each other in our journeys and in life. And so that's why we do yoga together. We have a basketball team. And we continue to grow to, you know, continue to focus and clarify what it is we do to serve
That's
veteran
great.
community.
Very important for particularly our younger veterans. And I want to thank CalVet, who just sponsored another year of our production of Veterans Voices. CalVet just notified Veterans Voices today that we have been awarded a $30,000 grant that will continue our episodes for another year. We want to thank all of our supporters, and we want to thank you, Ryan, because we're going to do a lot more with the show. We're going to grow the show, and the Man on the Street segment is going to be a big part of that growth. So stay tuned for more of Ryan Berg and more of the Man on the Street. Thank you for being here tonight, Ryan. And we've got a great show, and thank you, our audience, for being here tonight as well. We've got a great show planned tonight around financial education. We want to have a real conversation, a safe conversation. We know that talking about money is sometimes a vulnerable thing. Maybe you feel inadequate. Maybe you feel like you don't know a lot. Maybe it's hard to really admit where you are in life or where you want to go. But we want to have you call into our show and participate in this conversation, this very real conversation about finances. Our crew is standing by for your calls, emails, and chats. Call us live right now for the next hour at 313-1170. Again, 925-313-1170. We'll return after this brief message from Military OneSource.
Join us on a tour and see what Military OneSource can do for you. The homepage is your access point to all Military OneSource services and the latest military family life information and resources. Search the top 5 most shared, read, or watched videos, articles, or podcasts through the new Most Popular feature. Read stories about military life from a boots-on-the-ground perspective on the Blog Brigade, and join in the live tweets on our Twitter site. Easily connect to e-publications available through this widget, such as the MOS e-newsletter. Use the Installation Locator tool to find information on military installations, such as housing, schools, and much more. From the homepage, you can find information quickly and easily and in a variety of ways, using the navigator links at the top of the page, the search option, or the main menu. Use the Phases of Military Life Navigator to find the relevant information you need today. Looking for information and resources provided by your service branch? Find it here. For those who support military service members, this section provides valuable policy, program, and community support information. Use the search option to locate information by entering the topic you are interested in. Main menu pages offer counseling options, military life topics, and related podcasts so that you can stay on top of program news. Join the conversation on our social media hub through our Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Tumblr pages. Military OneSource is mobile. The next time you're on the go, check us out from a tablet or smartphone, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Military OneSource. Call, click, connect.
If you're just tuning in, our topic tonight is financial education, and we want to hear from you. When thinking about your financial future, what is your biggest concern? How have past decisions affected your financial health today? We're standing by for your calls. Please pick up the phone and give us a ring. You can also email and direct message us. You always have the option of remaining anonymous by clicking the live chat link on our website. We are now joined by 2 financial counselors who have a solid background in offering financial insight to veterans and their families. Welcome, Elizabeth and Dan.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you for being here.
So Elizabeth, you're from the local area. Tell us real briefly about yourself.
I'm a government financial coach for veterans to provide a safe place for them to talk about their finances and their life and where those two intersect to figure out their next steps forward.
Fantastic. And it's a program just for veterans.
I am simply here for veterans. That is my role.
Well, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a financial planner here in the Bay Area. I have my own firm, a registered investment advisor called Triple Summit Advisors. And what we do is work with individuals and families on financial planning and investment advisory goals.
And you're a veteran as well?
I am, that's right.
Tell us about your service.
I'm an Army vet, artillery officer, served from 2005 to 2009, and I did one tour in Iraq from 2008 to 2009.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both for being here tonight. So let's loosen up a little bit and talk about money. And it's a difficult topic, as I mentioned earlier, but we want to give people, we want to plant a little seed and give people maybe a little bit of hope, maybe give them a little bit of clarity in terms of money. You know, I think about the role of the military, and when someone first joins the military, I got to be honest. I don't think I realized that I was even going to get paid when I was in the Marine Corps. It took me a while to realize it was actually a paid job. But at some point, you spend 4 years in the military, and a lot of your needs are being met. Your health care, they provide food for you. They give you a place to live. Where does the conversation begin for someone, typically, whether they're a veteran or not a veteran, around the idea that the money is something that we have to be conscious about?
It kind of weaves through our whole life. It's not the most important piece of our life, but it weaves through our whole life. And we generally see other people with money. Mm-hmm. So it has to start becoming personal, don't you think, Dan?
Yes, absolutely.
It has to become personal. What do you need from your money? What kind of a life are you building for yourself? Where are you now? Where have the hard things been? What do you need to do kind of overcome? Most people feel like they've gone through some pits, right? And so what do you need to do to come back out of that pit again? Or in other roles, when you're doing well.
Right, how do you want to even take it further and perhaps expand your goals and then use your resources to reach your goals, to perhaps extend the experiences that your family can have or the security that your family can have.
But let's put on the lens of an 18-year-old or a 22-year-old. I've been out of the military for about 14 years. Ryan, I don't know, how about you? About 10 or so?
Yep, 10 years.
Dan, how long have you been out for?
I've been out now for almost 8 years.
Okay,
yeah.
So let's rewind the clock a little bit. And we're 18 or we're 22. We're just going in or we're just getting out. How do we really start? I'm thinking about, there's a lot competing with that young mind. There's a lot of material needs, and there's just a lot of lifestyle that's consuming our minds. Is there a certain organic part of this this discussion that we need to have, or that is lacking with 18-year-olds or with 22-year-olds, or with someone who's young and getting out of the military, who's lived relatively a very cushioned or isolated lifestyle of having all their basic needs met?
Now, I agree with you that when you have all your basic needs met, it's hard to then transition to thinking more independently about what you need to do for yourself. And in those two situations, I would recommend in that situation, I would recommend two things. One is, just like in the military, you had people you looked up to, mentors, people who acted the right way, were able to succeed in their jobs and in their positions. You can find that as well, even as a new veteran, veteran just coming out of the military and the armed services. And there are folks who have that ability on the financial side also, that you see them around in your life, you know who they are. So that's one. And two, you can educate yourself. There are books out there to learn about basic financial planning that will really help you set yourself up for success.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to take it away from you.
Go ahead.
I'll just be honest with you. When I get paid, I feel really happy, and I feel like the need to get rid of it at times. Like I have this money. I think maybe it has to do with the way I grew up. Things weren't always completely stable, and so maybe part of me is trying to reenact prior stuff, just with not having a lot in my life growing up. So I think, when I get paid, I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. I can maybe go buy something. Now I have a lot more discipline in my life now than say a few years ago, but I do notice that I still have the urge to spend. So I was just curious, like in your work with veterans, what are some obstacles or challenges that you find, like maybe a common theme with that community?
There has to be almost like a pause. Kind of a stop and breathe and evaluate, what do you want out of your life? You're doing today. What do you want out of your life beyond today? What's coming? Most people, if I ask them that question, they say, well, I want a house. Okay, so then that begs the question, well, how do you see yourself getting that house? What do you need to do to put yourself in a position to get it? That starts shifting the focus from just what I need today to a balance between today and tomorrow. And then the other thing is most people will come in and say, if they've had this, I need to get rid of it, or I want it, I need to, I deserve it. I don't know how long my life is going to be when this kind of stuff happens. Then, because people are affected, the emotions and the finances are tied, right? Okay, so then it becomes, they'll come to me and say, I'm always out of money. And then my tires. And then this emergency happened. I wasn't expecting this. So then it becomes one of the first steps. Okay, let's look forward. How do you want to try to become prepared for the unexpected? Because the unexpected can be expected. Does that make sense? So if you kind of start there, that can start then the motivation to begin to live not just for today, but today and tomorrow. And then also the motivation of not having to go to a credit card. And then you start saving and developing, and then you start adding the skills and investing. It gets kind of contagious.
I think part of it too is waiting for so long for that paycheck to come, and then it's time to celebrate. It's finally here, right? And when you wait for something for so long, then you just feel so glad that it's finally come. So we've gotten this conversation started, which is fantastic, and I want to include our audience in the conversation as well. So if you have not already, be sure to call in, ask a question, make a comment. You can do so even anonymously. If you don't want to call in and hear your voice, you can do so over a message or an email. We're even on Facebook Live. You can join us there. And we have a comment. It's from someone anonymous, and this is a very technical question. And I don't know, hopefully we can address this question. But it says, how do I convert a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, assuming I'm over the income limits to contribute to a Roth? So this is a very technical question. But this is good because this is someone who's thinking maybe about their future, about their long-term goals, maybe even about something like retirement.
So the short answer to this is you can just call your broker, your brokerage, and ask them to walk you through the steps. They do this on a regular basis with their customers, and they'll be able to walk you through it. The long answer, however, is there may be tax implications from what you're doing, and so you'll want to understand that first before you go forward with doing this.
So you need an expert.
Yeah.
You need to call, and I think maybe, is it a challenge to find an expert, or is it a challenge more so just to make that first phone call and actually engage with that person? In providing this type of help for folks, what do you find is the biggest challenge for the veteran or for the general community? Is it finding you, or is it actually picking up that phone and giving you a call?
You have to find somebody you can relate to, where there's rapport and that you feel that you can trust them. And it's totally within the rights of the consumer, and actually wise for the consumer, to interview several. Can you relate to them? Do you feel like they hear you? Are they speaking in a way you understand the answers they're giving? Is their style of how they would like to recommend things to you based on their expertise? Does it fit you and how you want to manage your risks and your rewards in your future? So that, to me, is one of the key pieces. You want to look at credentials and things like that too, but just to call a credential isn't necessarily going to build a productive relationship. And you look at fee structures and things like that too.
So another technical question here, and I want to thank our audience so far for these contributions. And if you have any question, maybe you want to talk about debt, maybe you want to talk about wealth management, maybe you just want to talk about how difficult money really is as a tool. Our next question, because our floor director says we have 1 million left. I have a 401k. Is it like a blind trust? How do I see where my money is invested? I don't know how you can answer that very technical question, but
that's a good answer.
You can answer that. So your 401k is typically tied to your employer, or at least at one point was, and that's how you originally enrolled in it. And typically it's a vehicle to then invest in other funds that are offered in a menu of options in that employer-sponsored plan. And so if you know where the funds are held, the brokerage that holds them, say it's Vanguard or Fidelity or something like that, you should be either receiving statements or have a way to log in and access your statements to find out where your money is being invested.
And then you have the choice. Usually there's a menu that you can choose to allocate your funds to, so you can not only see what is invested in now, but you can see what your choices are, and there will be information there, and then also resources to ask additional questions. Well, how does that work? What is that fund invested in? So it's not blind. It's specifically not blind.
This is great. Well, we've got the conversation going. It's moving along. I want to thank our audience for joining us. And again, I want you to participate in tonight's discussion. I believe that being a veteran and particularly transitioning out of the military can be stressful enough. To add on some type of financial stress can be very, very difficult, and it can be detrimental to your health. So we want to have that conversation with you tonight. We've got two experts. We're going to bring a veteran on later on so we can get the veteran's perspective as well. But we're going to pause now. We're going to pause the conversation for a minute to remind our viewers of the Transition Assistance Program, which provides information and training to help service members prepare for their transition back to civilian life. Go to their website for financial planning tools and resources. We'd like to share with you now a brief overview of the TAP program. We'll still be taking your calls and messages during the video break.
Regardless of your branch of service, leaving active duty for the civilian world can be a challenge. But your service's Transition Assistance Program has the tools and resources to help you understand your options, create your individual transition plan, and succeed in life after active duty. All service members, including reservists and guardsmen with at least 180 continuous days of active duty, are eligible to attend the transition program. During the program, you will learn how to write a resume, different job interview techniques for the civilian sector, and how to create a 12-month post-separation budget. You'll also learn about various VA benefits, such as home loans, education, and how to file disability claims and apply for life insurance. Additional 2-day tracks are available to service members and spouses with specific post-transition goals. The tracks include the Accessing Higher Education track for those interested in pursuing an advanced degree, the Career Technical Training track for those interested in selecting a technical training school, field, or certification, and the Entrepreneurship track for those interested in starting their own business. Although the program is provided in a classroom setting, the entire curriculum is available on Joint Knowledge Online, or JKO. Service members and spouses are encouraged to review JKO before or even after attending their Transition Assistance Program. Create your plan to transition into the civilian world and get started. Visit dodtap.mil.
If you're just tuning in tonight, we're going to show you the money. This is our financial education special. Lend your voice to our discussion, please. What are your financial concerns? Have you ever made a financial blunder? Sharing your story may help other veterans avoid similar pitfalls. You always have the option of remaining anonymous. I have a quick question. So if how might you encourage a veteran out there who has a job that their company offers a 401k, but they have yet to enroll? I'm just curious to hear, because I found myself in that position, 4 years ago. I was just, working and by not contributing, I had an extra $200 or $300, per paycheck. So, but I've since realized the value, obviously, after 4 years of contributing to a 401k. So I'm just curious, how might you encourage?
So right, like that. What made you finally say yes?
Someone, a coworker, someone who had a 401k, he said. What he said was, you'll have $1 million in your account by the time you retire. He essentially, told me, whether or not that's true, I don't know, but what he told me was, look, or what he was trying to help me see was that, look, someday you're going to need money. You're not going to work for your whole life. So that's the encouragement that I got, was from a coworker, but I'm just curious.
Everybody needs a different motivation, but most of us don't plan to work for the rest of our lives. Actually, if you're in a room, though, full of people, and you say, how many want to have to work for money for the rest of your life? I've never seen a hand go up. To have to work, not choose to work, right? And therein is some of the motivation. And then you can begin to bring what your friend brought, or colleague, the power of compounding.
Right.
You want to talk to that a bit?
So yes, so as your friend was saying, depending on the assumptions that are built into what he said, it's possible that you could get there by the time you reach retirement. But 401k investing is just one step, one portion of the whole financial planning process.
I see.
Yes.
I also hear delayed gratification, though. I also hear a little bit of a psychology shift there, though, in terms of understanding that if I take some action now, it's going to lead to a much bigger outcome at some point in the future. So do you ever have to have a conversation with someone about buying something and whether to hold off on that purchase, or about taking a portion of that paycheck and actually setting it aside into account? And what are some of the ways to help people understand delayed gratification? Not in a way that we would help, like my 6-year-old daughter, but actually help an adult, someone who's very responsible, who's had a lot of life experience. We've done a lot of real things in our life, but just a very basic lesson can be hard to embrace.
So Liz alluded to this a little bit earlier, which is you want to start with someone's goals, with the person you're talking to, understand what their goals are, and have them go through that self-reflection and have them understand what their goals are. And from there, if you know what the goals are, some are short-term, some are medium-term, some are long-term, like retirement, you can work backwards from those goals. And in order to get to where you want to go, you know that there might be some delayed, deferred gratification, some of that saving now in order to spend later, in order to make those goals achievable. And so that's how that works.
It needs to be self-motivated.
Okay.
It's got to be self-motivated. For me to come and tell you, see, when they said you could have $1 million, it triggered something in you, right? It did something. It went, oh.
Sounds like a lot of money to me.
Oh, right?
My inner millionaire.
Oh, right? So it has to be self-motivated. Our job is to try to connect you in those instances. What do you really want? Maybe you don't want to think about the future. I have clients who don't. And I say, okay, so what's your risk if you never put aside a dime?
Yeah.
And if they can speak to that and they go, I'm okay with that, right? But most people don't want that. So if you can kind of connect them with, what does it look like if I do? What does it look like for me personally if I don't? And how do I then want to manage that?
So we've been talking about the individual, and this is Veterans Voices, and generally we're thinking about the veteran. But our question here, again, is anonymous. This is fantastic. This is how you can participate in this conversation without revealing your vulnerability, asking a question over our chat, email. And we have an anonymous question here. How should a newly married couple start a budget? So whether it's a budget or whether it's starting a 401k, how could two individuals that are becoming this partnership, how could they begin somewhere together? Where's a good place for them to begin?
We're back to self-reflection, but now as a couple.
Right.
And we're back to basic math. One of the things that sometimes we forget is that 1 + 1 is always 2, and 1 - 2 is always -1. We have limited resources. Very few people have unlimited resources. So the budget, how much do we have coming in? How much do we expect? What kind of a life do we want? What kind of a future do we want? How now do we want to allocate what we have to try to get the best balance to us as a couple to have the life that we want now and later?
I would imagine that's a very hard conversation, though, for a couple to actually sit down together and to start there. Is there a particular technique, or is there a particular method? Should they start with a spreadsheet? Should they just start with a cup of coffee? And should they start with specific goals about children and buying a home and about retirement and about vacations? Or is it okay just to start anywhere and work from there?
I think this is a conversation that goes with a lot of other conversations you have before getting married,
Okay.
after getting married, communication, understanding what the other person wants, and each couple's going to have their own way of doing it. Some couples communicate in spreadsheets. I have friends who do that, and others only in the morning after they both had their cup of coffee and the kids are ready at school. So it really depends on the couple, but the communication, as Liz was saying, is key.
I think it's very interesting that I read in planning this show that the number 7 reason for divorce or marriage problems was finances. And I don't know if you find that in the work that you do, is not having this conversation, is not working together as a couple, could it potentially lead to problems within the relationship or within the family?
Oh, definitely. You're talking about people's survival, right? The money is our tool. Most of us don't farm. We don't make our own clothes. We don't weave our own cloth. So that money is our vehicle to building our lives. If the couple can't, they have to work together to find this middle ground where they can each build towards the life they want. If one spends everything and the other one doesn't, if they're not equally, now you can be opposites. Usually opposites attract, but you find this way to a middle ground that you can work together as a couple towards your goals, or it's very stressful.
I think my wife may have actually asked that question, so I think I'm going to have a have to have a conversation soon. So.
Okay.
Hey, we're all learning something.
Yeah, right.
And we're so glad that you're joining us tonight in our topic, Show Me the Money. And we're talking about your money. We're talking about our money. We're talking about finances. And it's a very difficult topic. I don't remember my drill instructor talking about it. Did your drill instructor talk about money? No. So we didn't get this in the very basic fundamentals of the military. And once we left the military, I think we realized that this managing money and planning our financial goals and making it a tool for us instead of a burden is very difficult to do. But we have experts here tonight. We want to hear from you. We have another question here. This is fantastic. What is the perfect % to save each paycheck?
Okay.
Right?
Perfect, by the way. I want to,
Right. The exact
answer here. What's
It's a good question.
a very good question. So what's helpful here for people?
So life is unpredictable. So generally, the higher the better. But there's no one perfect number for anyone. It depends on what your goals are ultimately. And I know I'm being a little general there, but this is something where if you think about it and have that self-reflection, you can find out, okay, I have to save 15%, let's just say, right? In order to, of my paycheck, in order to hit this retirement income goal 30 years down the line, assuming that I get a 5% return on this portfolio.
This may be a technical question, but if I'm thinking this way, maybe a lot of the audience is, are you talking about 15% of my take-home pay? Or is it 15% of what my gross salary is? Because that could be a pretty, substantially different number. Is it what shows up in the bank on Friday?
So I'm not going to address your question specifically. I'm going to go to where Dan was.
Okay.
If you dream a little and you talk about your goals, there are ways numerically, working with a financial advisor, planner, whatever, or yourself with book, figure out how much do I need? How much am I trying to save? Based on figuring out what you're trying to save and in how many years and kind of how you plan to invest it, what rate of return you expect to have, now you can figure out for you what your perfect % savings is. And then you can say, is that most people do it from their net. Because that's all they have, right? The other they didn't get to take home. But it's if you can actually drive to that number of what am I shooting for? And then from there drill back down to, well, then that means if I'm making this much, I need to save this much, which means now I look at the other money and how am I going to allocate that for my other goals.
So I guess the perfect answer is that you're saving a portion of that paycheck, and the percentage of that exactly is dependent upon your situation and the person and the couple.
That's right.
Fantastic. Well, we've got lots more to discuss. I hate to put a pause here, but we'll be talking more, and we'll actually have another guest on the set here in a minute.
For more information on the resources discussed tonight, go to our website. There you'll also find our calendar highlighting upcoming veterans events and programs. On April 29th, the exhibit Remembering Our Fallen will open at SFO's Hyatt Regency and continue until May 1st. For more information, go to rememberingourfallen.org. We'll have more events coming up later in the show. We'll return briefly to take more of your calls and continue our discussion.
Navigating the financial marketplace can be hard.
There's no clear roadmap, which can make financial decisions confusing and difficult.
There should be someone looking out for you, and that's where we come in. We're the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We're a new kind of government agency created after the financial crisis.
And looking out for you, it's exactly what we do. We opened our doors in 2011, and we've been working hard for you ever since.
We write and enforce rules to ensure that markets for consumer financial products and services are fair and open.
And to make financial information easier to understand.
We're making the home buying process easier, and we've made it safe for people to send money to friends and family abroad. And we're charged with protecting you from unfair, deceptive, or abusive acts or practices by financial institutions.
We've returned billions of dollars in relief to people who are harmed by companies that didn't play by the rules.
We also build tools and resources that help arm you with the information you need and empower you to make the best financial decisions for yourself and your family.
Whether it's buying a home, paying for college, or just finding answers to tricky questions and avoiding financial mistakes, we're here for you.
And that information is right here in one place, consumerfinance.gov.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you see tonight or have suggestions on how we might do things better, go to our homepage and join the Veterans Voices Viewer Advisory Panel. Very important. We know that we've got the attention of CalVet. We know we have an audience out there. We know the community is watching the show, but we need your feedback. As a member of the Viewer Advisory Panel, a short survey taken after each episode will give you the chance to voice your opinions, your thoughts, and help shape the direction of our future shows. Every summer, we host a barbecue to thank our Viewer Advisory Panel. Sign up and stay tuned for future announcements on everything. Also coming up is the Veteran Self-Portrait Painting Workshop. It's called About Face. It's a fantastic program. Workshops will be held on April 23rd and April 30th. Go to ac5.org or call 925-646-2278 to register for this fantastic free opportunity. So welcome back, guys. We're talking about money and finances, and we've got some great questions here. We've got another one, as a matter of fact. But before we get to it, Diane, welcome to the set of the show.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
U.S. Army. A while ago. Did 4 years. I had an MOS of a nuclear weapons maintenance specialist. I love saying that because people are like, what? So it's always a good line at parties. But right now, I'm the head of a nonprofit right now for veterans in Oakland in Alameda County. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Great.
Helping the vets get their benefits known and used.
Well, and you're doing your own television show, and
Yes.
so thank you so much for being on the set tonight and joining us in this conversation about finances.
Thank you.
So we've got a question from Julie, and Julie's question is very interesting. She says, yes, that's great. We're assuming that people make $100,000 a year or more, and they've got, employers to contribute to their IRAs and such. But Julie wants to know, what if I'm on disability, which is not every veteran's on disability, but it's a common scenario for a veteran who maybe has service-related injuries or who has a total and permanent disability. So what about this veteran? How can they best plan their finances, prepare for the future, or prevent any type of mishaps?
The pro of the disability is it's an income that doesn't stop, right? It's an income that's going to continue. The negative is it's a limited income.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like anything else we talked about a minute ago. Very few people have unlimited resources. So if you look at what you have coming in and then assess, how do I want to allocate this? I think Julie had asked something about an IRA. How could they contribute? They can't use the IRA, so how can they kind of get ahead? It would be general savings. IRAs were created in 1981. Before that, it didn't exist, individual retirement accounts. You save. It's just savings. The IRA is a vehicle we use now to set that money aside in, but that's not an exclusive vehicle to savings, right? So you would look and try to find a way within that strict, limited disability budget to allocate some towards savings to try to grow for unexpected expenses, and then beyond that, to provide additional resources down the road. I hope that helps a little.
Fantastic. We have another question here, and this is a veteran who wants to know how to start a small business and where can they get the funding. So maybe that might be more of a, where can I get grants or loans, but how can someone prepare to put some money aside so that they may invest into themselves? We're always thinking maybe about how to invest into products and funds, but how can a veteran best invest into themselves? And if so, if they don't have the funding, is there some type of program out there that can help them?
So Nathan, at the end of this, I'd like to turn back to you because I think you have a lot of resources that you can point the commenter to. But to begin with, savings is always the key here, making sure that likely some of your own venture is going to have to be bootstrapped, is going to have to be self-funded. So savings, planning for it ahead of time. As you plan for it and do the research with customers and try to understand what you're selling and what your product and service is going to be, you develop a business plan. And as you develop a business plan, you're more likely to be able to get financing from lenders or maybe equity investors, whoever it might be that's out there. There are definitely ways to find out about this, but I'll turn to you, Nathan, actually, for more resources.
Well, the Small Business Administration has a specific veterans program. They don't loan money to veterans, but similar to buying a home, they offer a guarantee to a loan. So it helps the veteran to establish creditworthiness in pursuing a business loan to start a business. How have you found, Diane, that, yes, you got your finger going, so go ahead, jump right into this conversation.
Actually, I was relating to what you were saying. This nonprofit, the Veterans Community Media Network, is very new. So you talked about savings and trying to plan for the month ahead or what it's going to involve, because you're eventually looking at brick and mortar. You're going to be looking at staff, volunteers, supplies. I mean, from ink pens to, hotel rooms that you'll need. So for me, I am on disability. I have a fixed income through the Veterans and Social Security. So every dime, I mean, is scrutinized. I mean, I don't have much wiggle room to do anything. And I do have a brick and mortar. But I am also learning through, like you said, in the SBA and from people who've become my mentor, how to find out about grants, loans, get that proposal, get what you have in your head down on paper, and then start using that as proposal writings, mainly that. So I'm learning how to do grants and loans right now, in addition to my own personal whatever I can contribute. There are crowdfunding. I've even tried that. So I'm trying everything that'll keep the doors open and the lights on.
I think that's an important point. You try everything. When you're starting a small business, there isn't a source I know of that just says, yes, we fund small businesses. So in the process of building your business plan and looking for resources, you build a network, you build contacts, you find mentors, you find like-minded people, you find people who might be interested. It's going out and networking and getting to know others that eventually starts taking you forward to where you need to be for that business.
Absolutely. I need about 10 of me, technically, to do all this necessary.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Speaking of numbers, we have another question here, and the person wants to know, how many credit cards should a veteran have? Let's not talk specifically about credit cards. Let's just talk about debt. We've talked about saving and investing. How should we approach debt? And if we have it, what's the best way to put a plan into place to get out of it? Or if it's tempting because we get so many of them in the mail and they offer all kinds of points and rebates and all kinds of opportunities in life, how should we avoid it if it's one of our goals to do so?
Let's do both. How many credit cards should a veteran have? It's personal. Do you like to have all those credit cards available to you? Is that a risk to you? For some veterans, that's a risk. But if they have them, they're going to use them and they don't want to use them. For others, they want to have different, one for miles, one for this or that, and they'll use them but pay them off at the end of the month. So there's not a risk of the debt accumulating beyond what they can manage. We're back to really individual. Who are you as an individual veteran? What are you trying to accomplish with your money? What do you need? What are your risk factors and what are your positives? And in terms of bringing down debt, we're not trying to generalize, but everything in this financial arena is individual.
Absolutely.
All of it.
Absolutely.
And so in terms of a debt management plan, it's a conversation often with a professional to kind of just talk it out and say, well, what do I need? What are my goals? What have I reflected on? What am I trying to achieve? Where does debt fit into that? Do I need debt to kind of help me forward a little bit? Or am I trying to eliminate it? If I'm trying to eliminate it, what resources do I have within this is how much money I have, this is what my obligations are, to kind of drill down and get rid of that? And how do I balance saving with the debt pay down.
So credit card debt is only one way to have debt, but there's other types of debts that I think we often overlook: education debt, mortgage, car loans. I don't know. You look like you were going to say something on that.
Curious, is it generally beneficial to keep a third of your credit limit on your credit card? I don't know if that's.
I've never heard about keeping a third of your credit limit on your credit card as a balance as being generally beneficial. Making payments on time is very beneficial for your credit score. Generally, using lower balances relative to your total credit limit is beneficial for your credit score. The length of the time that your accounts have been open is also beneficial for your credit score.
Okay, thank you.
So we only have about 30 seconds. Any last suggestions or perspectives, Diane, as a veteran, in terms of really approaching this very difficult topic of money?
I'm learning a lot from everyone here, but now at a business angle, where I'm thinking of what I do individually with myself. That's one thing, but now to think about it as a business idea and what it takes for financial business savvy, I'm like, I would definitely like to learn more. I would need to know more, and some of this I get the feeling I could probably apply this to some personal things that I do too.
So let's wrap it up with it. There's more to learn than just what can be covered in an hour. And we've learned that one of the best things someone can do is go talk to an expert. So should someone generally expect that they're going to pay to talk to an expert about finances? Or what's a safe assumption in terms of if they do have to pay, what's a fair amount to pay?
So we're always open to having conversation, just speaking for myself here. Always open to having conversation. I think most financial advisors, financial planners are open to having that initial conversation to understand if there's a mutual fit and then decide to go forward. And then as far as the correct amount to pay, there's different fee structures, whether it's an hourly basis or on a project basis, or perhaps charging based on how much money is managed.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for being here. We'll move on from this conversation for the evening, but I've really enjoyed it.
It's now time for A Veteran's Voice, our special segment where veterans can share what's important to them. Tonight, we bring you poetry and prose from Vietnam veteran Bill Nelson's latest book, Places in the Mind. Stay tuned for resources and events coming up after the break.
Hi, Nathan Johnson, host of Veterans Voices. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm joined by Bill Nelson, author of Places in the Mind and Vietnam veteran. Thanks for joining us, Bill.
Thank you for having me, Nathan. It's a real privilege, and I enjoy the opportunity of sharing a little bit of my life that someone else may find an experience in that. You've expressed a lot of your voice through your book, Places in the Mind, and share with us a little bit before we dive into the book. Share a little bit about your military service. Well, I was drafted, and I served in Vietnam, 366 days, one leap year. I spent my entire 20th year there. I turned 20. I got there May 9th, turned 20 on May 12th. Wow. Got home on May 9th, and I turned 21 on May 12th. Wow. So my whole 20th year was in Vietnam. Well, thank you for your service. And you're a local resident here in Contra Costa County, and you've shared your book with many residents here in the county at some of our previous events. It's mostly about your experiences in Vietnam, or is it just about your life in general? It's a collection of life. It has my grandfather, my father, my kids. I have one that's been read at like 30 weddings. So it's a whole collection of Mother's Day poems, poems to my wife and telling her how much I love her. So it covers a real gamut of history and emotions. Do you mind sharing with us a little bit about the book? Maybe read a few of the poems and tell us about the poems and why you wrote them? Yeah. Well, I'll give first the title, Places in the Mind. Right. I had an icon on my computer, a folder, and I couldn't figure out what, so I named it Places in the Mind, because that's where everything is that comes out. And when my daughter put this book together for me, did an unbelievable job, I thought, well, I don't have a poem, Places in the Mind. So I started by writing a poem for the book. Okay. And can I share that now? Absolutely, please. Okay. Places in the Mind. As a child, the things that be, from stick horse, from lawn to sea, great pirate ships with clouds for sails, moon and planet stars beyond, dragons, damsels in distress, knights in shining armor, witches' pot of special brew, prince to frog, and back again, places in the mind. Statues carved from just a rock, paint to brush of scenes that awe, greater is the thought behind it all. In a corner in a room, chains that bind, cages made of bars, body racked by nature's rage, as a child the things that be, ready to be set free, places in the mind. Books of places never seen, anger, rage, a lover's touch, arms outstretched to grasp the sun, two hearts joined that touch the moon, despots curse to hold men down, as a child the things that be, ready to be set free, places in the mind.
Very nice. So what goes into writing a poem like that? You know, you mentioned that you wanted to write the poem because the book had to have a poem about places in the mind.
It comes from a whole lot of angles. It's like a road that goes every direction and they all come to one point.
Okay.
And sometimes it's a great emotion that you feel and you feel you have to get it out. Other times I have this picture, and on the cover you have clouds with faces in them and pirate ships and stuff like that. So how do I describe that? And so that's how that one came about in that.
So what goes into reading a poem?
You have to read it out loud.
Okay.
We've all talked at weddings and funerals and that, and you can sit there and recite a speech, and it is perfect. But when it comes out of your mouth, you get the feeling. And I think I expressed that to you a long time ago when I gave you the book.
You did.
And when you start reading it out loud, you go, wow.
Yeah.
And
right.
it really jumps out.
So even if you're alone, you're the only person in the room, and you open up this book, you should read it out.
Read it out loud.
Okay.
You need to, when you hear the words, they mean more than when you just say them quietly. You know, it all invokes something, and that's, you write them for yourself, but you write them for everyone else too.
So share another one with us, please.
Okay, and now I've talked about the kids and that. Sometimes you reflect about, I was blessed enough to know my grandpa, some of my kids knew my grandfather. And my grandfather was a cowboy. So I wrote, my grandpa was a cowboy. What was yours? The big sky of Montana, Great Plains of Canada, horses being broken and rode. Some broke him, his back, his neck, the death of his little boy, his heart. Time lost forever. My grandpa was a cowboy. What was yours? Hard days, long nights, morning, ma'am, hand to hat. Yes, ma'am, please to, ma'am. Pride and strength, manners and respect. A way of life for most, time lost forever. My grandpa was a cowboy. What was yours? Leathered face topped by white brow, covered by wide-brimmed hat, hands as large as dinner plates, whose touch soothed the wild horse, dwarfed his grandson's outstretched palm. Mustache pricked with a kiss, smell of tobacco on his lips. Time of lost forever. My grandpa was a cowboy. What was yours?
Well, how has this helped you, writing poems and reading poems, and is there a particular style of poetry that maybe you haven't written that is something that you have a preference for?
I write prose, and there's very little rhyming. There is a little, but not much, and it's all rhythm.
Okay.
And it was going back to what you said earlier. It's the rhythm of how it goes, and there is a cadence, which I had a person point out. He says, well, that's military. There's a cadence in what you read. And to pause, you can pause because you're going by something and you're stopping to look at it, and then you're moving on. So there's a cadence to prose.
Has it been very therapeutic? As a Vietnam veteran, has this been a form of therapy for you?
Oh, absolutely. And I have written some in that. If I may, here's one that says, I got this one when I watched in Saving Private Ryan. We did it late one night at my friend's house on Memorial Day. And I couldn't go to sleep till I wrote this. And it said, and the end scene is the one where he's looking and reflecting back, did all those men die for me? Am I worth what they died for? And it says, not so tall as once I stood, the sun doesn't seem so bright as once it was. The wind of time has drawn lines in the sand across my face. My heart reaches out, my mind drawn back to a time in my youth, not wanting to remember, not wanting to forget. The wind of time has drawn lines in the sand across my face. The desert sand, beaches gray, white sands of Vietnam. Crimson stains have disappeared, all but in my mind. Water washed, winds have blown lines in the sand and on my face. The fear when under fire, death standing very close. Cries of fallen men I hear, anguished hand reaching out, leaving lines in the sand and on my face. We men who fought and lived, forever duty bound to those we left behind, the ones we cradled in our arms, those who died alone. Remember the lines in the sand on my face.
Yeah, wow. Very powerful. So. I remember reading that one, actually. Yeah. It says a lot about that 1 year, 366 days in Vietnam, your 20th birthday, and being 20 and all that you've gone through at such a young age, and at such a difficult time.
Yeah, and you look at the World War II veterans now, and the ones that, and interviews, and they still cry.
Yeah.
And it's a short period of time in an 80 or 90 year life.
Yeah.
And it puts those things in there.
Well, would you mind reading one more? Maybe the flag in the drawer. That's the one that we read when we dedicated our flagpole out in front of our building here.
There's a word in there, caisson. And a lot of people, even military people, don't know what a caisson is because it is part of a artillery. And it is what they put the coffins on to pull them off the field, or used to.
Okay.
Now we put them on helicopters, but back then you put them on caissons.
Okay.
And if you see any official burials like at Arlington, that is a caisson normally that has the coffin on it. The flag in the drawer never felt a gentle breeze, never shimmered in the sun, never climbed the highest pole, a drape for a native son, the flag in the drawer. 3 corners to the fold, on caisson slowly pulled, from battlefield to grave, gently lifted, folded, put away, the flag in the drawer. The tears that fell upon this flag, the sacrifice lies deep inside, not only he who gave his life, but those he touched, left behind, the flag in the drawer. So many times to arms the call, so many times the coffin shawl, so many times this sacrifice. Is this the cost of freedom's light? The flag in the drawer. When we see it on the highest pole, when we see it shimmer in the sun, when we see it flutter with the breeze, remember those who stood the test, the flag in the drawer.
Wow. What an honor to have you here today, Bill. I appreciate all that you've done, and what a beautiful book, and what a great human being you are. Again, thank you for your service, and I hope that others were listening and were moved and touched, as I have been, in just sitting and listening to you read these poems. So
thank you.
Thank you so much, and we'll be back with more from Veterans Voices. Thank you. Well, welcome back. Tonight we discuss tools and organizations that can assist you in planning for your financial future. A list of these resources can be found on our website. The Department of Defense's Transition Assistance Program can be found at dodtap.mil and is a great resource for service members, veterans, and you, and for your families as well. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau protects consumers and takes action against companies that break the law. They provide information, steps, and tools so consumers can make smart financial decisions. Find them at consumerfinance.gov. Military OneSource is a one-stop shop for military benefit information and helps prepare for deployments, reintegration, moves, parenthood, retirement, and much more. They can be found at militaryonesource.mil.
If you're a veteran organization or group with an upcoming event, contact us and we'll add it to our calendar. The Walk of Honor 2017 pays tribute to the men and women who have served our nation. The walk will start in Crockett at 8:30 a.m. on May 20th and will be followed by a barbecue luncheon with live entertainment and a raffle. Contact Vietnam Veterans of Diablo Valley for more information. The Valor Games Far West 2017 will take place from June 2nd through the 5th on Coast Guard Island in Alameda. This event is an introductory sport competition for any veteran or active duty service member with a disability who is eligible for VA health care. ValorGamesFarWest.com for registration and volunteer information. On May 27th, the Armed Forces Half Marathon will be held in Concord at Todos Santos Plaza. Go to armedforceshalf.com to register. This is a great volunteer opportunity and they need help, so contact them today. Go to our homepage, ContraCostaTV.org/Veterans Voices to see additional events and resource information.
We thank you for your participation tonight. We got a lot of great questions and comments. Thank you for that. And we look forward to hearing your voice next month. If you missed anything this episode, we'll replay throughout the week on CCTV and also archived on our website. If you'd like to support us in continuing our monthly dialogue around veterans issues, we accept donations through the Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization. Your tax-free contribution will keep us on the air longer so we can continue to serve our veteran community. Call or email us to offer your support to our show. We'd like to send well wishes to John Reese tonight. Thank you for watching Veterans Voices of Contra Costa. Wishing you all good evening, and thank you for serving.